All right, just a little bit on the blood-brain barrier, not a lot. I mentioned it before when we talked about the astrocytes. In order to protect the brain from antibodies and any bacteria and things that might be in the blood, there exists what's called the blood-brain barrier. All right, so this prevents substances from getting into the brain, into the extracellular fluid of the brain tissue, and keeping that brain healthy. So there's several things that are important for the blood-brain barrier. Number one, the endothelial cells of these blood capillaries. All right, now, kind of distance yourselves from cerebrospinal fluid right now. We're looking at the capillaries that are embedded within the brain tissue and spinal cord tissue. So these simple squamous epithelial cells that make up the endothelium of those capillaries have what we call tight junctions. And these prevent substances from actually getting between the cells.
Says it talks way more about it in 20.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that
Okay.
extra detail. But the other thing that helps to prevent substances from getting from the blood into the brain, and some things can, are those perivascular feet of the astrocytes. Okay, here's another picture here. Here's an astrocyte. Here's all the feet that are kind of stuck to those endothelial cells. Those create another barrier to prevent substances from physically moving out of the blood into the brain that shouldn't be there. All right. Here's kind of a longitudinal section here. Here's those perivascular feet. Here's the tight junctions here between those endothelial cells. And then there is a third structure. It's another type of cell called a pericyte. Not parasite, but pericyte. Peri meaning around. So a lot of capillaries, you'll find this in the kidney as well, in the glomerulus of the kidney, that these pericytes kind of surround and extend their cytoplasm and their cell membrane out around large portions of the capillaries. And that adds an additional barrier. So you have the tight junctions, the perivascular feet of the astrocytes, and then the basement membrane and the plasma membrane of these pericytes. Now, things that are lipid soluble are able to actually pass through these membranes. Because remember, plasma membranes are made with phospholipids. So if something is lipid soluble, it's able to pass from the blood through those cells into the brain. So like oxygen, carbon dioxide, alcohol, ETOH is ethanol, alcohol, caffeine. I mean, how would we wake up in the morning, right? If that caffeine didn't get into our central nervous system. The problem with the blood-brain barrier, while it's very important, is that it prevents drug delivery in some cases. If someone has some type of brain disorder that can be treated with certain conditions, sometimes those drugs are unable to pass through that blood-brain barrier. Oh, here we go. Okay, a couple other things that are lipid soluble, or that can actually pass through that are not lipid soluble. Glucose, even though it's not lipid soluble, is able to pass through the blood-brain barrier, which is important. Oh, yeah. Nicotine. That is also lipid soluble. That can pass through the blood-brain barrier. With a cigarette? Yeah, because that nicotine is binding to receptors, and yeah.
That's feel good. Right?
Well, yeah. You say so. I get the same thing when I eat like a big piece of chocolate cake or a cookie or, you know,
Well, they're both bad for you.
yeah.